Welcome to Solar and Battery Storage, how our developers are making money and avoiding risk. I'm Ryan McEvoy with Gaia, principal and founder. We lead in solar owner rep work. We've completed over 100 million square feet to date, and it's been an honor to work with these panelists and their companies on sustainability and green building projects. And these are definitely the leaders who are moving the needle, pushing hard, and making sure that sustainability is at the forefront and advancing. I'll let them introduce themselves. They'll do better than me, so Josh.
Josh Cox, Hillwood Development. I work with our West Coast team. We're primarily focused on big box industrial in the Inland Empire. I also have the privilege of serving as our local NAIOP Inland Empire chapter president this year, so I love NAIOP and love our industry.
Jacob Morgan, I lead our energy and sustainability at Prologis. Building out solar on our buildings, doing EV charging for their fleets. Our energy team also does front-of-the-meter storage and sustainability efforts across the globe.
Richard Bogan, Director of Capital Projects Sustainability at Rexford Industrial, heading up our solar initiative across Southern California.
Jonathan Port, Permacity Foundation, and we help companies decarbonize, but part of that I ran the largest engineering procurement contractor doing large commercial solar roofs in Los Angeles, and we probably built the majority of the feed-in-tariff projects here.
Current state of solar. 92% of all new energy in the world is solar. In the United States was 66%, and last year the US installed as much solar as all of California has. California continues to grow, year-over-year growth. We're the #1 state with solar. It's pretty apparent to everybody here. 46 days this year, we've overproduced energy from water, wind, and solar, and the state continues to use batteries to discharge energy. On January 10th, every hour of the night, batteries are discharged. And on average, about 2 hours a day of the utility in California is run on batteries. Gas is down tremendously the last 2 years by 40%, batteries up 200%, wind, water, solar up 20%. So we're continuing to see growth in California exponentially. Why are people doing it? I think it's pretty obvious to all of us. You have ESG goals, you have codes, you have a carrot, a stick. Tenants want it. You make money, right? Right? Yeah, you're making money, and utility rates and stuff and regulations. So the way we're going to go through this is look at the carrot and the stick. It's an easy way to think about all this. I think all of our panelists have dealt with both of those. So let's start with the stick first. CALGreen code, a lot of people don't realize this. For the last 2 years, you're required to put solar and batteries on your project in California. You need it for C of O. They're not very large systems. It's based on your conditioned floor area. There's a prescriptive path where it's just a calculation of your floor area. Boom, you have to do solar for a typical warehouse. Unconditioned warehouse with maybe 8,000 square feet of office might be about $300,000, or you can do a performance-based energy model and get out of the batteries and decrease the solar by a couple $100,000. But then we also have cities requiring 100% solar. Corona, Long Beach, Redlands, requiring 100% solar for buildings. Other sticks, anybody ever heard of the Sierra Club? Other organizations like that. AB 98, which hopefully is getting revamped. We have the where points, indirect source rules, conditions of approval, development agreements, mitigation measures. All these are pushing people into solar. This shows a graph of 4% is roughly what the code required is going to do, or less. It just shows what 20% of the roof area be. This would be for dry storage, not cold storage, just 3PL. 100% offset's about 20% of the roof area, and then there's 100% roof. Some codes say you have to do 100% roof, or some mitigation measures, which if you don't have an off-taker for that power, where's it gonna go? We have a client that's gonna spend $20 million adding solar on a roof and not connect it because they agreed to 100% roof area. So I'd like to open this up to questions about that. And yeah, maybe Jacob and Richard, how are you guys meeting the CALGreen code as well as going above and beyond? You guys are both doing kind of smaller, bigger projects, but how are you meeting the code?
Sure. So one of the ways we're meeting codes is just working specifically with customers and also utilities and the local municipalities, making sure that they're not signing up for agreements that overproduce solar or solar they don't need. We're also unlocking community solar throughout the U.S., where you have a 1 million square foot building, a customer only needs, as Ryan was saying, 10% of that, but we want to electrify the whole building. So we're working on advancing these programs to be able to put as much solar on the rooftops, and then just working with these customers also to phase these projects. A lot of the timeline issues with interconnection, being able to put a portion of it today until network upgrades come, but we really take the place of phasing projects and then meeting the needs and working with both utilities and municipalities.
At Rexford, we're taking a few different strategies. One is through new developments. We're kind of going above what Title 24 is requiring us to do, and we're looking to provide 85% of energy to our future warehouse distribution tenants. We're also looking to install solar on existing assets. Same strategy, trying to offset 85% of those tenants' usage. And then the third strategy that we've been doing for a few years now is an LADWP in the FIT program. And in that scenario, we're looking for a third party to come in, own, bring in the capital to install it, the O&M, and then they provide a roof rent to us. Those are the three main strategies that we're doing.
Great. And then also with entitlements and stuff, Josh, you've dealt with this for entitlements, and how's that looking on your project? And has that changed over the last couple of years? And what's that process look like for you?
Sure. Love entitlements in California, right? Development agreements have always been a part of that process. I remember when I started in commercial real estate, learning the term logistics. We all know that means goods movement. I like saying now that goods movement is good news. There's a lot of reasons for that. Smart development leads to community benefits, which Ryan is also not new, but as more and more cities are getting more specific about the community benefits that they want, they're asking for parks or specifically solar. So Ryan had a list of cities that now require solar. For example, Hillwood, in partnership with CBRE Investment Management, we have a 500-acre NASCAR project in the Inland Empire West. We're developing 6.5 million square feet of logistics facilities. And with San Bernardino County, we're offsetting our future tenants' electricity demand with solar. But the key is, Ryan, my kind of takeaway for the group, at least for Hillwood, is we worked really closely with Kinley Horn on having flexible development agreement language. So not over-promising and under-delivering. So in our case, we're going to get a shell CFO, and our solar is not tied to that. We're required to install the solar within 2 years of tenant occupancy. So it allows us, in a changing environment of solar, to figure out what size solar we want for that tenant, to have time to work through the interconnect agreement and provide solar in a timely manner that works for us and for the county. So flexibility in your development language. We're not even required to do solar per se. Our strategy is rooftop PV, but it could be carports. It could be any sort of sustainable energy. And so just keep your language flexible is something that we found to be helpful.
I think we're going to move on to the carrot. That's a more exciting part of solar and business. So what are the benefits of this? People know, you can lease up faster, meet ESG goals, earn lead points, fast track entitlements. When you show up to negotiate entitlements and you're going to say you do spec net zero or 85%, that can expedite things. And let's make sure we all have the same language. How many people know what in front of the meter versus behind the meter is? That's a good show of hands, yeah. So in front of the meter is utility scale. The power goes to the grid. The utility buys it. It's not to the tenant. Behind the meter is the power goes to the building. It can be owner user. Third party puts it up, sells it. Prologis may own it, sell it, or Rexford. And this kind of shows what a spec net zero warehouse would be. And then the chart on the right is the light blue is how much is utility scale solar that's going in. So it can be ground mounted or rooftop, but as you can see, a majority of solar going up really is utility scale solar. That could be in community solar, or it could be in a FIT program. Most states have a community solar program. The FIT program and LADWP, John Port and I had the pleasure to work to kind of put that together. 300 megawatts, first 150 megawatts and 300 megawatts. And that's where an LED VP, you could get paid 14 cents, 16 cents, 12 cents, depending on where you are, on a 20-year contract to feed power to LED to VP. And how are these deals getting done? Many of you probably already know this, but just get us all up to speed. You have cash deals. So you own it, you operate it, you maintain it, you take the tax credit depreciation. It's kind of what Rexford and Prologis are doing on some stuff. Or you can have a third party come in for a PPA. Josh is doing that. So a third party owns it, operates it, maintains it, sells you the power, or sells it to the tenant, gives you a revenue share or a roof lease. They get the tax credit depreciation, but now you have a 20, 25-year contract on the roof. So make sure you negotiate, you can change that out. Other things affecting the carrot is NEM 3.0. Before you would get a credit to the utility, 12 cents they charge you, you get 12 cents credit. Now they'll give you 2 cents or even charge you money to put it back in the grid. It makes things much more difficult when you put solar up and you want to sell the tenant the power. So you have to charge batteries, bleed them off in the evening. And we're looking at microgrids where utilities can't bring power. They only give you 1,000 amps, you need 5,000 amps. So people are looking at how to do solar, battery, microgrids, so we can get our project up and running sooner. So in that discussion, John Port and I have worked on the FIT, but have you seen community solar and FIT change the industry and that whole process and where it's at?
So FIT was like the most powerful way to get the industrial property owners interested, because it just eliminated the moving parts. It's one roof, max the roof, and sell all that power directly to the utility company at a really high rate at 14 cents. It recognized that the value of the power from an industrial building, it's inside the city network, it's not subject to a blockage from transmission, all sorts of things, and it really, it's been an amazing program. I think we've done, we've seen 150 megawatts built so far. We built one of the jobs we built was 2 million square feet, completely covered in solar, 16.5 megawatts, down near the port of LA, and it probably added about 3%. I can't say it adds 10%, but I'm guessing it added about 3% of the value to the building, and that was under a third-party deal, like Richard said, where the landlord collected rent. There was a third party financing it, so it really opened the market, because normally you only need 20%, or you have these little systems, but here you're covering the entire roof. And I think it's an amazing long-term asset for property owners, because once you have that interconnect, anyone knows about power, the interconnect is the most valuable. So if you have 100,000 million square foot, 500,000 square foot, and you're connected in, you've got a permanent asset on your building. And it's only gonna get more valuable. So I could probably throw that over to Rexford, who's really mastered that, or Prologis. You guys really know that as from the inside.
Yeah, it's a very positive tool to be able to max out solar, be able to put solar on as many of your assets as possible. There's the limitations that we were trying to adjust to it. That power goes directly to the grid, and it's not going to our tenants. So we're looking at trying to do a hybrid system in which we're going to carve out a portion of that roof and sell that power to the tenant, and then we're going to utilize the rest of the roof space to rent that out to a third party, thereby maxing out the amount of potential revenue we can get off of the roof from the solar panels. So as the program has evolved, there's been ways to learn and how to be able to capture as much as power as you possibly can, or revenue, and then being able to satisfy the tenant's needs in some way, or in our case, also our ESG goals that we have.
And I'll add, our biggest goal is simplification for the customer. So we've been able to move, as Ryan was saying, NEM 3.0, major economic hit on just solar value. So we were able to actually move a lot of meters into Prologis' name, file under NEM 2.0, which we got higher credits for. And that way we can just keep that value for the roof space. And then one of our biggest things is for your customers coming in and out with different needs, trying to understand, right, as much value that we can bring to the tenant, doing the same thing, parsing off parcels or parsing off areas on the rooftop for the customer, and then understanding their growing need, right? A lot of our customers are adding AI to their buildings, simplification of their manufacturing, and all of that leads to more energy use. And just electrifying their fleets. We've seen a major uptick in energy needs, and so we're kind of the energy as a service on the Prologis side, being able to talk to these customers, work through programs, being able to find sustainable ways and efficient ways of adding solar or adding energy needs to their building, and being able to work directly with those utilities. We've also kind of taken it under our own wing to be able to provide like long lead equipment and be able to achieve earlier dates. A lot of the times we'll file for more power and the utility will come back and say 2 years because of long leads and engineering. And so we're partnering with the engineering resources that are working in those territories. We're buying equipment up front and just really trying to push those 2-3 year timelines into 12 months.
And just one more benefit. Through solar and these programs, we've been able to expedite interconnect sometimes. The other great thing is, I'm going to give a little blurb for a solar trap. We ended up inventing a technology that has, I have 11 patents, but one of the patents covers lightweight, non-penetrating, non-ballasted solar on rooftops. And we did that. It has its own ICC number. It's FM Global compliant. Actually, we had to invent that to make it work. But the industry works really well now. The other great benefit, it actually cools the temperature of the building down by 10 degrees. So we built like 30 Costco's, and we noticed that you show up and the building was consuming no power with the solar, and the footprint went down. It was saving 40% more than it was predicted from the solar because of the cooling effect. So you get these tremendous multiplier effects in terms of quality of the building when you do it right.
And Josh, I got a question for you. Why did you guys decide to go to a third-party PPA versus owning it cash and maintaining and operating it?
Sure. I mean, as you're hearing from the panel, there's different strategies, different solar strategies. Like most things, solar is not a one-size-fits-all. So for Hillwood, most developers, right, it's about having good consultants. I've had the pleasure of working with Ryan and Gaia for almost 20 years. And so Hillwood is not a solar developer, at least today. Gaia came to us and said, hey, do you want to develop the solar? Do you want to own the solar? And we just looked at our priorities for Speedway Commerce Center. We're focused on a big project, and we said, hey, let's delegate that out to a professional. So Gaia helped us put together an RFP to find a solar developer for our project. And the PPA arrangement works well for Speedway Commerce Center. There's no cost up front to Hillwood. There's no maintenance costs. We now have a revenue stream that we didn't have before. And we can pass savings off to our tenant from an electricity perspective. So different than what Prologis is doing, but I love how, Jacob, you talk about that energy as a service to your customers. So it's another benefit to our tenants with the reduced power. So a PPA structure is working really well for us at Speedway Commerce Center.
A little different on that is when we own it, we're the power provider. So we may come up with a capital and put that in there, so we have the upfront amount of money that we need to invest into that system. But now we're the power provider for that tenant or for that property. And we have the ability to do what we want with that power. We can match utility rates. We can give a reduction of that to the tenant. We come into being able to provide a service to the tenant, what works best for them. Also, we own it, and if strategy of the properties change over time, solar is up there on the roof for 20 plus years. And that property, the strategy for it may change. When we own it, we have a little bit more versatility on what we can do with that system. So that's how we see the benefit of being able to go and actually own those systems.
Did you guys have to create a subsidiary company, or as your REIT bylaws allow you to be selling power? How did you guys kind of navigate that?
Under the new rules by the administration, a REIT can now sell power to the tenants, and it is good income. Now, we can't exceed the production. We can't produce too much power. We can't sell back to the utility company. So that's why when I use the word sizing the system at 85% of our tenants' usage, that's the strategy we do. We know that a warehouse distribution tenant uses around on average, 3 kilowatt hours per square foot. How that changes, how office is around 15 to 20 kilowatt hours. Manufacturing is 20 plus, cold storage is 30 plus. Warehouse distribution is pretty small. So we actually, about 10% of that roof space will offset about 85% of those tenants. And thereby, we're not exceeding their usage. And it's all good income. We will sell directly to them.
What percent of your new developments are you putting solar on?
All. Yeah, all of them. All of them now that are under Title 24, we're doing it. We're currently in the process of looking at ones that just been completed. We'll look to see if we can pull those into our strategy.
And for a plug for Prologis as well. Prologis to date, how much have you guys installed?
So we'll be at a gigawatt at the end of this year. We're over 600 megawatts installed, which is only 4% of our roof square footage right now. So that number we're trying to grow exponentially with these programs like feed-in-tariff programs, and then just the increase of electricity needs for customers, electrifying their HVAC, electrifying all of their fleet vehicles. So we see this number growing exponentially. It's how much do we keep and save for our customers versus sell back to utilities, because the biggest benefit for the customer, right? Customers are paying at some times 20 cents a watt. So being able to give them as much solar is the most value that we see, and customer centricity with our customers.
Anyone's in the solar market, Prologis has been able to capitalize on community solar across the nation. And in Southern California, we're just keeping our fingers crossed that community solar does come. And then we could potentially really utilize that to grow solar across all of us that are residing in this area, really grow.
And when you say you guys are doing solar because it's a corporate mandate, it's your own ESG goals, or tenants want it, put it both 50-50, or what's the front runner for why?
I'd say it's 50-50 in the sense of, we're able to also sell energy credits for our customers. I mean, we have such a big portfolio, that a customer may need additional megawatts. So these community solar programs allow you to do RECs in different areas and kind of transfer those electricity credits to a customer's goals and needs.
It's a good deal.
Yeah, it's both for us. I think we're seeing an uptick of customers just approaching us, wanting to have solar put on their property, and we're kind of looking to see how that we can help them out, and being able to put those in there. Either we're going to own it and manage that asset, or we can work with that partnership with them if it works best for them to actually help it.
Great. I'm going to jump into common pitfalls, lessons learned. There's a lot of lessons to be learned through this, even with all the experience. John's in this for 25 years. And so in our lessons learned delays, I think one of the biggest things about permit issues, interconnection agreements, interconnection study, take 4 months, 5 months, be a very difficult task to do to get there. We also have contracts. If we do a PPA, where's the fine print? Do they get access to your whole roof forever? Do they get access to charge your EV trucks? Are they going to have a bunch of small print and bamboozle you? And then we have technical performance issues. Do you have design review? Do you have people out doing torque testing and wire connection testing? So some of the pitfalls. We also have power demands. Does the utility have the power? When are they going to bring the power? Do you actually need that much power, or do the leasing agents just want to check a box? 4,000 amps, whether they can use 1,000. With demand for utility is high with AI, and we also have fire issues. You have one fire and all of a sudden everybody's freaked out. So I've got some good questions for John Pork. But FM Global pushing back on fires and saying it's going to be a whole loss of a building. Why are fires happening? Is it really that scary? Commitment, if you're having a PPA, contract 25 years, can you get out of it? What happens when tenants turn over? You guys own the power. It's a vacancy. Where does that power go? Weight of solar on a roof. Weigh 2 to 7 pounds. We're talking a bit about Sun Edison in the early days of very ballasted systems. So there's a variety of items to be aware of. And I think one of the biggest ones is a timeline. Josh, we won't be at for a couple of years. We're still not even under contract. Back and forth, the M3.0 shows up. But a smaller array that you need to do for code compliance, you can get done in 8 months, a year. But if you want to do spec net zero, 100%, that can take 16, 18 months with interconnection study, agreement, design, permit, and then permission to operate. And if you need to have solar for your certificate of occupancy, what are you going to do? Because now all of a sudden you have this, I want to go big, but it's going to take too long. So timeline is definitely an issue, I think, when it comes to these bigger solar projects. If it's an existing building, different story, but for new development, it can be difficult. And John likes to hear your opinion about fires and solar, and the weight. Is it really that scary? Should we all be freaked out, or what's happening?
Well, so the weight issue, I mean, we solved that through technology, right? We have the solar strap, it's patented, it's got its own building code, ICC number, it's FM approved. It neither bolts nor ballasts to the roof. It basically has a hot weld to the roof, and it has pins for earthquake compliance. We built that on the convention center, public, other public works. Most of the industrial buildings in LA have it, so it's highly resistant. So I don't think weight's an issue in the industry anymore. It used to be. Fire. There's been fires, and they make a big deal over it. And I really in 20 years I haven't seen any fire that really was that bad. I've seen some that were kind of bad, but it's really often malfunctioning equipment. So inverters on the roof, that's where all the power goes through. It's good to put extra reinforcement under, which is a voluntary compliance. It's good to build them a little bit above the roof. And those things, when they have malfunction, cause very limited damage. And again, in 20 years, I've only seen like of hundreds of projects, maybe a few that have had issues. So that's not really a big issue. What was the last one, Ryan?
Just if it,
Big thing is the biggest thing as an owner is the incompatibility originally with industrial buildings. Everyone built 10-year built-up roofs, and all the savvy developers like Rexford, Prologis, they all use 20 to 25-year membrane roofs, which usually go 30 to 40 years, and we've had absolutely zero issues the entire time with solar put on a new membrane roof. Built-up roofs are, so I encourage everyone, don't make a compromise, replace the roof. It's good for the life of the system.
do you feel that if you were to bypass a warning on a ground fault, it could start a fire?
Well, okay, so human issue. So yeah, so the issue with inverters, they have controls. If someone turns off the, it's called a ground fault, right? As you said, and if someone turns off the protection, the inverter is supposed to shut everything down, but it's possible to turn that off, and that's why there's probably extra safety procedures to prevent human error. There's been a few other issues in the fire safety where there's crosstalk where the connections melted, but it really hasn't caused big fires. And again, yeah. So, I mean, there's different ways it can happen. I think a highly experienced EPC and really looking at it first and really having great design will keep you out of those issues. I could probably just
Jacob, how are you guys dealing with insurance and fire and that kind of stuff?
So on fires for our energy storage projects, right? We've had to deal with a couple of fires that have popped up on old equipment. A lot of the old equipment we're using different, called NMC, which is nickel magnesium carbonate, much more fire added on those systems. So we've moved everything to LFP, which is a much more balanced material, and there's been no fires with LFP. Batteries, yeah, for batteries. And so I mean, a lot of it's just getting out of the old standards where these new products that came out that weren't safe in the market, everyone's now adopted these new standards, and it's really about communicating and being able to explain to insurance providers, explain to counties and municipals that like it's a totally different product, and a lot of times we're also like self-insuring our projects. I think that we have some of the best standards. We're doing independent engineering, having multiple engineering checks on all of our projects, and so having those, because we are owner operators, so having those additional checks and balances de-risk for our projects and give us an edge to be able to self-insure that we feel comfortable with our projects versus other projects in the industry.
A lot of trust and verify. I mean, the EPCs, they do have your best heart, your best. They don't want anything to fail either. But what we are doing is we're having peer reviews of structural to be sure that their calculations are meeting what our structural engineers are looking at. We're also having quality control of our installations to be sure that those installs are at best practice. And then, I worked on solar for a number of years, so a couple things that I've tried to do is whenever you talk about any of the dangers of solar, is normally typically on the DC side. You know, when the sun's out, it's ready to rock and roll. So what we do is we keep all those inverters outside the building, keep the DC exterior. Rapid shutdown now turns the DC off at the source, which is the solar panels, and that's increasing safety. On top of it, you know, what you pointed out, we're putting in a brand new TPO roof before we install the system, so the roof life matches the solar life, and that's a better product to be installing it.
And yeah, I think picking on one thing, I think for the owners, having a third party independent verification is really important, because everything's only as good as it's built, and there's a lot of different installers out there, and torque testing is another one of the most important. Torque testing is where you pressure clamp the module to the roof, and if they forget to torque it, doesn't matter what you have there, it's gonna go somewhere. So there's been in the industry where people forget to torque modules, but when a third party tester, they test it, it comes up and everything's fixed. So it's always been on the roofs where they haven't had third party verification. So I think that's very important.
We like to try to get out there first 5 to 10% installed, so that way if you see 1% fail, do another 5%, and then the trades know that you're on top of them. Don't wait till all things installed to do that.
And these systems are now all actively monitored, right? So if you see issues, you see temperatures hit over a certain temperature on a roof or on a battery, right? It automatically shuts down. There's more and more measures in place to add safety.
And Josh, you have any other ideas on how to avoid pitfalls in the PPA?
Yeah, so I can talk flexibility, but I think what John and Richard just talked about is worth highlighting. We're in Southern California, right? So historically, the Inland Empire market's been a built-up roofing market, maybe a 15-year NDL, no dollar limit roof warranty. But you're starting to see more and more of the TPO, the single ply, where you get a standard 20-year roof warranty. Your PPA is 20, 25 years, so that lines up better. And my understanding, TPO is more popular, but PVC may be more flame resistant. I heard someone recently call it a thermal event. Rare, but maybe happens. I like that term, thermal event. But so maybe PVC is another option. But having the right roof, I know we've upgraded at Speedway and Parkview with solar, and then getting that solar on as soon as possible. Richard, I love what you said about community solar. In California, fingers crossed, that'll be a game changer for us. So getting solar installed as quickly as possible on a new roof is really going to help as a pitfall to PPA. And then language, it comes back to language, right? It's not just on the development agreement or your lease with your tenant. It's if you're doing a PPA, it's on your solar lease, on your PPA language. Ryan alluded to it, having a buyout provision that goes down over time. So as the owner, you or your tenant, or maybe even a future buyer, they could own the solar system, because 20-25 year PPA, that's a long time, and we're in a changing world. So those are a few of potential ways to avoid pitfalls.
Great. We also have some questions from the audience that we can get to. Unless you guys had other comments about pitfalls, maybe you don't want to hit some of the pitfalls.
It's all rosy.
Yeah. Well, Richard mentioned that sometimes they own and sometimes they lease the roof. What considerations go into that decision?
Well, generally in the city of Los Angeles, that's where the feed-in-tariff program is, and that's where we're looking to have a third party own it. In that market, what we're able to do is utilize the entire roof space. That third party comes in, maximizes the whole entire roof, feeds all that power back to the utility, and then they're providing us with a roof rent over the life of the solar system. From ESG, we're able to really showcase a huge rollout of solar, and that dictates us going in that direction in that market. When we look outside of LEDWP, Southern California Edison, there is no third party or a feed-in-tariff type program or a community solar program, and in those areas we're looking to go and own those systems, be the power provider, sell the power back to the tenant, own that system, and really try to maximize the revenue that we can. Now, that being said, a little tiny, for people that may not understand, we can't the utility companies will not allow us to put a system that exceeds the usage of that tenant. So, warehouse distribution tenant that uses practically no power unless they are having an EV fleet or if they have some sort of manufacturing in there, but generally very little amount of usage. So only 10% of the roof space is utilized for a solar system. But that's offsetting their usage most likely around 85%, and allowing us to generate that income from that.
Yeah, because of development agreements that clients have signed up to that say, hey, we'll put up solar for all future EV cars and trucks and all that stuff. Like, utilities might let you install
It's
that.
happen like you do it. Until you have it in there.
Until you have an EV fleet or you have manufacturing equipment ordered, you can't do that. Did you guys submit a bunch of your FIT applications so you had control over that? Don't you guys own some of your own FIT?
No, we don't have. We have a third party that owns the whole thing. It gets a little complicated as a REIT to be able to own that and sell that back to the utility, and it just made sense to have third parties continue to own that.
Next question. Are you seeing resistance from tenants for the inconvenience and risk of having solar on their rooftop? And how are you navigating that?
I can take that one. One of the biggest things we do with if it's a third-party system, it's not for their use. We do customer touch points, make sure that none of their operations are affected. We have a full plan of like when the installation is going to happen, when the shipments are going to arrive, where best it makes sense to put that on the property. Like our goal is that they don't really even notice that project's going on. But yeah, that's one of the biggest pushbacks that we've gotten on our community solar or third-party programs is just making sure that the customer's not affected.
And so maybe it's when you're installing. Nobody's complaining that it's up there. It's just the installation.
The major distraction is when it's actually being installed, and then these systems there's O&M and maintenance a couple times a year, but once these systems are built and typically going through all of our engineering standards, they should not have issues. So it's really just during the building phase that it's built correctly, and then the O&M piece of it is very simple.
And that was actually a follow-up question.
Yeah. On that question, it's important to note that solars they're built from the outside, and most of the EPCs they'll put a scaffold. It possibly has a few hours to 1 day of crane time, but other than that, it's all built from the outside. It's outside the business, so it's fairly easy to manage those logistics.
I'm behind the meter. To share an example, going to approach a tenant. What we're doing is we're looking at our re-roofs and we're looking at our capital plan on future re-roofs that we're doing across the portfolio, and we've decided to piggyback a solar system along with that re-roof. We go and approach the tenant and we say, we're putting in a new roof and you're a great candidate to have solar. And we go in the pitch and we tell them, we will come up, we're going to have all the capital to install this. We will continue the O&M afterwards. All we ask is that you buy this power from us. We'll give it to you at a reduced rate. There's nothing for you to have to worry about. Case in point, a tenant a couple weeks ago goes, well, what's the catch? Or where's the catch in this? There's no catch. We have ESG goals that we're trying to achieve. We've got a net zero goal that we want to do that. And the only vehicle that gets us there is to roll out solar. And from behind the meter, in which Rexford is owning it and we're installing it, we've never had a tenant push back on this. We've had some that want to do it themselves, and they're a little bit more savvy and they understand the economics behind it. But generally, they're pretty happy about us coming in there and putting solar on the property.
10 requests per one complaint.
What's that?
10 people requesting solar versus one person complaining?
Yeah, probably less than that.
Yeah, like no one less than that.
And the savings you get, right, from if you're going to do a re-roof already and you add solar, right, the savings that you're going to get, you can take that, whatever, $250 a watt down to in the ones for sure.
And what about maintenance? To ask about maintenance. How much does it cost? What's the issues? Options to deal with it? Does it harass the tenants? Do they have to know about it?
So maintenance is either there's an auto washing system or it needs to be washed usually in dry areas, dust areas, like twice a year. and it's going out and testing, torque testing, and scanning the equipment to make sure it's tight enough so it doesn't malfunction. It's generally a very short process. It's generally washing is a couple days, twice a year at most. And again, it's people working on the external, and then most of the testing is up on the roof. So it's not disruptive. I mean, you guys can. I don't think.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it's like simple inverter replacement, simple, just pieces of equipment that fail, and it's a, roll one truck, and it's, an hour of, if that, of just installing the new equipment, uninstalling the old equipment, and pretty simple.
Yeah, all the systems are monitored now, so you can start seeing if there's a degradation from soiling of the panels, kind of get an idea. You got to get up there and clean them up. Sometimes you're lucky, Mother Nature can help you out. It's a good rainfall to kind of get the dust down, but there is monitoring on it that does assist you to know, hey, we need to get someone up there and take a look at it, and maybe it'll cause solar panel to start to fail, the inverter start to have some issues. All that tends to be very minimal. It's just a routine inspection and take a look at it and make sure things are still took down, make sure wires aren't flapping in the wind, make sure a squirrel doesn't go up there and chew out a wire somewhere.
And then we got
Squirrel. I have seen that once.
Real quick, I'd say plan for the future, even if you're not looking at solar. For Hillwood, solar doesn't make sense in every market, but upsize your electrical room. Where you are in a solar market, we're considering putting water spigots on the roof to help with the maintenance. So last thing you want to do is impact the tenant, right? So there's design strategies on a shell basis that you can implement into your building for your market that can help if and when you do solar in the future.
What about billing? How are you guys billing this? There are third-party billing companies.
We're utilizing third-party billing systems to go and monitor and submit the bills to the tenants. Basically, only the third party. I think it gives the tenants a little bit more reassuring that another party is monitoring that for us and supplying that. It also allows us to be a little bit more hands-off, to be a little bit more automated, and we're finding that to be a good direction.
And we're trying to simplify as much as possible, right? So building it into lease costs, building these agreements in, so you can just bill directly. Prologis, we're kind of we have our own billing system, and we're trying to simplify it into 4 holes and just make sure you know what your expected energy was for the month, what it actually was, right? And we're actively monitoring, as we were saying, these systems, making sure like what we said we were going to build and what it was going to provide is meeting the standards that are in the contracts.
There's a question with the additional penetrations required for solar, you see an increase in roofers of new construction. I didn't do a slide on that, but you could have 2 main systems that are going up. You can have a ballasted system that has a bunch of weights. Could be batteries, could be center blocks of weights. Then you have a product like Solar Strap that straps to the roof that is non-penetrating and does not have weights. So you have non-penetrating and non-weight. So it could be like 2 pounds square foot. The ballasted ones are 8 pounds. Penetrations used to happen 15, 20 years ago, but nobody wants a bunch of holes in your roof. So some might have a few penetrations in a high wind load area, but usually we're trying to stay away from those types of systems.
Nice partnerships with your roofers. We bring the roofers on board. We're going to be putting a system on there. We get that original roofer to come in and do the connection work that has to happen if we're not using we use Solar Strap. Even in that case, we're bringing that roofer back on. That way, we're not voiding any warranty. And if it does, we notify the manufacturer and say, putting the solar system on there. They like to see pictures. They like to know that our original roofer is going back out there. Depending on the system size, they said, hey, can we see some pictures? Maybe we want our inspector to go out there. It's just relationships and making sure that you're bringing in that roofer to be able to keep that warranty in place and deliver a good product to that building.
Yeah, so Solar Strap it's a unique technology that we of course patented. It has what's called target patches, and it's built the exact same way you build a memory roof, and it's covered under the manufacturer's NDL warranty. So, but I think as Richard said, it's good to have good coordination of that, so you don't have any I mean, we haven't had any issues. It's a,
Finger point.
we don't want any finger point. Yeah, you don't want to have finger pointing because it might leak around the skylight. They blame it on the solar. It leaks around the edges. It leaks on the building, and we've seen that. But so you want one person to point to, but we haven't seen any issues. The membrane roofs are just really resilient, assuming they're built right, right? But good contractors and a manufacturer that signs off on their NDL and gives it to use. With a product like Solar Trap is probably the way to go.
And the roofing consultant can also help with that peace of mind, that third-party verification as was mentioned.
Yeah.
There's a question on that. How important is a Title 24 analysis when determining solar PV requirements? Well, for the code, you have to use that to determine the size of your solar just to meet the code, to get your CLO. But for other projects, like Richard's saying, looking at 3 watts per square foot, those are speculative. It's hard to determine who's coming in there, where Jacob likes to get a tenant in there, see their profile for a year, and then try to design solar around that. It's too hard to say how much people are going to use. That's why you can use the top 24 report and then back off on that a little bit. Also, your top 24 report is typically going to be less than what is actual. There's extra plug loads, there's equipment, there's random stuff. So using that as a good baseline, that's kind of what we do talking to others to establish that.
Tenants come and go, so you get a system on there that depending on who's in there, it's going to always be able to provide a certain threshold of power to. At times, if you get an entrenched tenant or somebody you have a long lease, Jake talks about, you can actually design systems for their usage. And if they're in there for an extended amount of time, then you can really capitalize on the revenue coming from it. And
Very good point.
yeah, very good.
And Ryan, on the counter to that, let's say you're not doing solar, at least not now. Per the new CALGreen, you have conditioned office space. You do have to put now solar and battery storage. So in California, all of us are going to be doing some component of solar, whether it's large scale or just a little bit of solar for a conditioned office on a spec basis.
And with that, I think we're coming to our end of time. So we're going to wrap this up. As a consultant, it's been great to work with clients that really care and ask a lot of questions and want to utilize myself and my team's knowledge to move the needle. And I also get to learn from you guys. It's been great working with you guys throughout the years.